Michael Carrick may have the backing of Middlesbrough's hierarchy, but as far as his future as boss is concerned, it's anything but certain. Supporters have really started to turn on the Middlesbrough manager of late. Results have been absolutely shocking, with the club's hopes of finishing in the top six hanging by a thread. The 2-1 defeat against Bristol City was a new low for the club, and with Stoke City coming up, it's a match which many fans are deeming to be a must-win for Middlesbrough as far as their top six aspirations, but also as far as Michael Carrick's future as manager. Carrick will be hoping that he can win supporters round and prove that he is the man to lead Middlesbrough in the long term. But for a lot of supporters, it's too little too late, with many of already making their decision on whether he's the man to lead us moving forward. So is Michael Carrick already doomed as Middlesbrough boss, despite the show of confidence from Middlesbrough's hierarchy? This is Bonkers for Boro. Let's find out.
Stewie Downing then. Downing running beyond the fullback. Whips a great looking ball in. Header. Goal! Massimo Macaroni! Massimo Macaroni! Macaroni's header! And Boro have struck a stick to the heart of Dracula's boys! And it could be Eindhoven time!
Welcome back to Bonkers for Boro, and this is another match preview going into the fixture with Stoke City this week. It's a fixture that, on paper, Middlesbrough should be hoping and should be quite confident of being able to get a positive result from. But based on the way that the last few weeks have been going and the way that Middlesbrough have been performing, it's really starting to look like another really, really tricky fixture in a long line of tricky fixtures, really. You look at the Championship table here going into this week's round of fixtures. I'm recording this on Monday with Leeds and Sheffield United to be playing this evening. But you can see just how competitive that's really starting to look for the top six, and just how far Middlesbrough have fallen in the hopes of getting in there all the way through the season. And even until a few weeks ago, I was saying that Middlesbrough should be firmly in that top six, probably in fourth or fifth place, and hoping to go into the end of the season with not even battling really to get into the top six, but kind of consolidating that spot and making sure that it's ours and that we can go into the playoffs with real confidence and hope that we can go in there not just to make it in that top six and not just to make it into the playoffs, but to get a positive result and ultimately try and challenge for promotion. But as you can see from the table there, there's a whole host of teams who are challenging for those top six positions now. Middlesbrough, not only are they firmly in that chasing pack for the top six, but they've fallen way down the pecking order there as well. You can see there that at the time of recording, Middlesbrough are 7 points off sixth place in the table at the moment. Yes, we've got a game in hand. That match is against Stoke City. So that match could be a really, really pivotal one in terms of Middlesbrough's hopes of getting into the playoff places. A victory, obviously, you can see from the table here, would see Middlesbrough move up to 47 points. That would be 4 points behind the top six. And while that would be still a bit of ground to make up, you'd think that a victory over Stoke City and 3 points might be really good in terms of confidence and might see us put in a good position going into the final 12 games of the season in hopes of getting the job done. But a defeat would be a really, really disastrous. And I think for a lot of supporters, the feeling is that if Middlesbrough don't win against Stoke City, those hopes of finishing in the top six are all but over. With so many teams challenging for them, it's not even just a case of Middlesbrough doing their bit and getting the results that they need to draw level on points with the top six. They also are in a position now where they'll be having to overtake all of these teams who are also hoping to get in there. The likes of, as you can see here, Coventry and Bristol City and Watford and Norwich and Millwall and Sheffield Wednesday. There's also a couple of teams below Middlesbrough in the table who are going to be firmly in that mix as well. So all of a sudden, Middlesbrough aren't just competing with the table as such and trying to get those points. It's about outdoing the teams around them, and that's going to be a really, really difficult thing for Middlesbrough to do. They're going to need to win games, but also more than that, they're going to be needing to win more games. The teams that are around them in the table, which is going to be really tricky, and one challenge that Michael Carrick is really going to have to raise his game to get to, particularly based on how badly Middlesbrough have been doing of late. 5 defeats in a row in the Championship. You can see the run of red L's next to the Middlesbrough's name in the table there shows just how how shocking Middlesbrough's form is at the moment. And a trip to Stoke City on Tuesday night. There's a cliche in there, isn't there, somewhere about how tricky that might be. And you've got to think for Middlesbrough, this is going to be a really, really difficult test. A team in Middlesbrough who are really struggling for confidence, really just not looking like themselves at the moment. And you can just see that regardless of how this game plays out, hopefully it'll end up in a victory. But you can just anticipate there's going to end up being another real slog for Michael Carrick's team if they are to hope to get the 3 points that they need to go some way to getting their season back on track. Now, Michael Carrick, he's the big talking point in town, really, to do with Middlesbrough. I know that there's a lot of talk about Middlesbrough's signings and the way that Middlesbrough are performing on the pitch and player performances, which all have not been good enough. But Michael Carrick's future is very much the main talking point at the moment. Fans are so downbeat when you talk to them and when you look on social media. There's just no sort of excitement or enthusiasm going into these matches, which is a real shame because it really kind of looked that when Middlesbrough were going to be moving into late February and March, once the season really starts to heat up, the kind of hope was that Middlesbrough will be playing some good football, they'll be winning games, they'll be scoring lots of goals, and it will be a really, really exciting time of the season. That's what normally is the case when Middlesbrough are able to put together a promotion challenge, but that just hasn't happened this season. We've really fallen away at the worst time possible, and that's led to heaps of criticism on Michael Carrick. Really, he's really starting to feel the brunt of it. His press conferences are getting shorter and sharper, and the way that he's conducting himself, it's really starting to show that the pressure is really starting to tell on the Middlesbrough boss. Obviously, the statement came out last week from Middlesbrough's hierarchy that they'd be backing Michael Carrick. That came out through Scott Wilson and the Northern Echo, that they'd be throwing the support behind him in his hopes of challenging for promotion. I'm sure that the hope there was that sort of show of support behind Michael Carrick would be enough to silence the criticism from supporters and really kind of bring everyone back together and bring the whole club and the whole town back together to be challenging for promotion and be singing off the same hymn sheet and be challenging for promotion. But it just hasn't really worked out that way. Results since then haven't been any better. The performance against Bristol City in particular on Friday night was no better. Middlesbrough still looked disjointed. They looked low on confidence. And there was still a lot of question marks and a lot of criticism around the way that Michael Carrick approached the game. The fact that Middlesbrough were winning the game, but Michael Carrick didn't make any substitutions until really, really late on, which allowed Bristol City to come back into the game and ultimately score their 2 goals in quick succession to put themselves ahead. And it's just kind of the same old story over and over again. And that's what's really concerning for Middlesbrough fans. That the hope would be that Michael Carrick would be able to change something and do something differently to get things back on track, to change the way that Middlesbrough's results are going at the moment, to sort of stop the rot. And it just doesn't seem to be happening. Results aren't improving. The way that Michael Carrick's approaching these games isn't improving. It's not getting any better. Middlesbrough aren't able to see out these games, and so it's just really the definition of insanity. The idea of going into these games and doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different outcome. And we've seen not just in the last few games, but over the course of the last few months, really, where Middlesbrough's frailties lie, and that does lie with Michael Carrick. I think if he's unable to make the changes needed to address those shortcomings and to see out these victories. Friday night was a perfect example with Middlesbrough in a winning position. All he had to do was, it didn't have to be pretty. All he had to do was do enough to help Middlesbrough to preserve that lead, see it out until the end of the game, and that would have been a crucial, massive 3 points that Middlesbrough would have been taken away from Ashton Gate, but it didn't happen, and that's led to the same old criticism around Michael Carrick. So yes, Michael Carrick will be hoping that victory over Stoke City will be enough to silence some of the criticisers, I guess. We've also got Derby County coming up at the weekend. 2 games that if Middlesbrough can get victories, yes, the table will look a lot healthier. But I think the question mark is just about, has the damage already been done to Michael Carrick's reign? I'm personally not convinced that even if Middlesbrough were to win against Stoke City and against Derby at the weekend, that supporters would be completely back in his corner. I don't think it would be enough to get Middlesbrough firmly back in the top 6 race. It would certainly help, but I think Middlesbrough's standing in the table is it's clear for all to see. There'll be a huge amount of work to do between now and the end of the season, even if we do get these victories. And I certainly don't even think that it'll be that if we do win these matches, that fans will be back in Michael Carrick's corner, thinking that he's the right man for the job. They'll be the man to get us over the line. I think it'll be really just putting a sticking plaster over what fans have already really started to realise, and that's that Michael Carrick isn't probably the man to lead Middlesbrough moving forward. He doesn't seem to be able to get the best out of this group of players. He doesn't really seem to be able to manage them in the way to get results. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's not about principles. It's not about trying to play attacking style of play, a possession-based style of play, and playing the game your way the whole time. It's a results-based business. It's about going out there and getting the 3 points that you need in order to fulfill your objectives, and that's something that Michael Carrick simply hasn't been able to do with Middlesbrough at the moment. So I think the match against Stoke City is going to be interesting from that point of view. Yes, I hope that Michael Carrick can guide the team to a victory. I think it would be a huge relief all round for the players, for him, for supporters as well. It'll give everyone a bit of a boost of optimism going into the final stages of the season. But as far as Michael Carrick's future is concerned, you can't help but feel that he may already be doomed. It does feel like the writing's on the wall as far as his future is concerned, whether he's dismissed sooner rather than later, or whether he's kept on until the end of the season. I think in the court of public opinion, with Middlesbrough supporters being the main voice, I think when fans lose their faith in a manager, it's only going to go one way. You very, very rarely see it where a manager has lost the faith of supporters as much as this, and he's able to win it back round. I've watched a lot of football. I've watched a lot of Middlesbrough teams, but I've watched a lot of teams from elsewhere as well, and it's very, very difficult for a manager to get supporters back on side when things have turned as toxic as this, and it's really, really looking quite bleak for him at the moment. Since that backing from Middlesbrough's hierarchy, there's been no sign of improvement. So there's not even really any sort of saving grace there as far as Carrick's concerned. So I think it's going to be another really, really tense night for him against Stoke City, also against Derby at the weekend. And yeah, for Carrick, he just has to pray for a positive result. And the fact that if he does get a positive result, it might silence the criticism of some of those supporters. But I think as far as many are concerned, I think that ship sailed. I think a lot of people have already decided that Michael Carrick probably isn't the man to lead Middlesbrough moving forward. And so for a lot of people, I think it's just a case of kind of when rather than if Middlesbrough do decide to make that managerial change. I can't see it really happening anytime soon personally, but I do think that it's a decision that will have to be made by Middlesbrough's hierarchy. I do think they'll have to revisit that statement that they made last week, because regardless of the fact that they're backing him, nothing's really changed. And I think I think the way that the season's threatening to really just fizzle out at the moment is so sad. It's a real shame for supporters who had such optimism going into the second half of the campaign, but yeah, it's just not really worked out. And for Michael Carrick, it's a shame, because it feels like his Middlesbrough career is probably coming to an end. So going into the match with Stoke City, this is the team that I would be selecting if I was Michael Carrick going into the match. It's not a team that, I'll be honest, that I look at and think, oh, that's a match-winning team. It's not one that I have particular confidence in at the moment, but it does feel like the best selection based on the form and I guess like the mental headspace of Middlesbrough's players at the moment. So from Bristol City, we'll be making one change. I'll be dropping Kelechi Iheanacho. He just hasn't done enough, to be honest. He looks unfit. He looks not particularly interested as far as I'm concerned. I think when you've gone from having a player like Emmanuel Latte-Lath, who even despite all of the transfer links and the speculation over his future, you knew what you were getting from him. You knew you were getting a shift. He set the tempo for the whole team in terms of pace and in terms of work ethic. He really, really was a really important player for Middlesbrough, leading from the front. And I think Middlesbrough needed a player of similar ilk, a similar standing, a similar work ethic, and Kelechi Iheanacho is just simply not that. So he's had a couple of games to do his bit, and it hasn't really worked out. I wouldn't be starting him against Stoke City. I'd be starting Tommy Conway in attack. I'd probably be bringing Finn Azaz back into the starting 11. I know that his form's been pretty poor over the last couple of months. We haven't really seen the best of him since back in December, really. But I do think he's got the potential to go out there and put in the sort of performance that could be a match-winning display for Middlesbrough. I'm not expecting that to happen, but I think he is someone who knows how to shine under Michael Carrick, and I do think that he's someone that I personally, given the lack of alternative in-form options, I think he is someone that I would be playing in that game. But I think elsewhere, I'd be sticking pretty much with as it was against Bristol City. I think Mark Travers was brilliant once again. I know it's unfortunate because he conceded another couple of goals, but he made so many good saves in that match. Really kind of saved Middlesbrough's bacon on a number of occasions. It could have been really quite ugly if it wasn't for him pulling off these stops. Middlesbrough could have conceded 5 or 6 goals in that game, so he's certainly going to be starting. Dijksteel, Dael, Rav van den Berg, I'd be starting all of them. I think there are our best options in defence at the moment. I'm not buying into the George Edmundson thing. I think Rav van den Berg and Dael, I think they're the best 2 central defenders at the club. So for me, it needs to be about consistency now. They need to be playing every single week, really working on that partnership. And I think that's the best way that Middlesbrough should be doing things moving forward. Neto Borges, I know that he'll be competing with Ryan Giles for that left back spot. Giles has had a really difficult time since he's come back to the club. He's made a couple of mistakes. He's been caught out of possession a good number of times, and I think for Neto Borges, I think he looked all right against Bristol City. To be honest, he did fairly well. I think as well as that, I'm kind of going on the way that he responded at the end of the game when he went over and he was communicating with the away Middlesbrough supporters. He was sort of like apologising, and you could see exactly how much it meant for him. And Middlesbrough needs that leadership and that sort of show of character from their players at the moment. He's one of a number of players who falls into that category, and for me, that's enough for me to think that he should be playing at left back, certainly going into this match against Stoke City. I've seen enough from him on the pitch, but also off the pitch based on that to see that he is a big personality, he is a leader, he is someone who is taking this seriously, so I'd be playing him for that game. Hayden, Hackney and Aidan Morris, we have very few other options in the middle of the park, to be honest. Yes, you could put in Dan Barlaser or someone like that, but I do think Morris and Hackney are the best 2 options there. Right wing, I know that Ben Doak's not quite ready yet. I think it's been reported that he's another couple of weeks away from returning. Sam Iling-Junior hasn't really shown enough of what he's about yet. So I think based on the fact that Morgan Whittaker, who also hasn't really shown a lot just yet, but the fact that he's a permanent signing, he's someone who will be with Middlesbrough for the long term, I think I'd be sticking with him, giving him another opportunity to try and show what he can do and try and ignite a little bit of form, I guess. Finn Azaz, I've mentioned him. I think I'd be bringing him back into the team. Delano Bergsorg. He hasn't been outstanding by any means in the last few weeks, but he's certainly been Middlesbrough's brightest spark. He's been the most likely to create something. So I think as far as I'm concerned, he should be starting every game as of right now. He also, similar to Neto Borges, he is someone who we saw on social media after the match last week that he was really sort of empathising with supporters, really kind of on the same page as them in terms of the disappointment that fans were showing. And so I think that's really, really important as well. And that ultimately is why Tommy Conway for me has to start as well. I've mentioned about Kelechi, Iheanacho, and the fact that he's just not looking at it in terms of fitness, but also in terms of interest levels. And Tommy Conway is another player who that social media post, it went semi-viral, I guess you could say, in terms of the way that he was saying to supporters, we hear you, we're just as devastated as you are. And that was something which really kind of hit home for a lot of supporters. I think fans really kind of like to hear from players when the going gets tough. I think far too often at Middlesbrough in particular, as the players sort of they kind of go missing when things go wrong. I think it's all well and good when Middlesbrough are winning games to be going on there saying, yeah, another 3 points, that's great, with the fist pump emojis and all that sort of thing. But players do tend to go missing when the results start to go missing as well. And so I think for him to front up in that way was really, really impressive and showed a real amount of leadership. He also did an interview with BBC Tees, which if you haven't listened was really impressive as well. He spoke with real authority and confidence. And also just kind of showed that he does get it and he's up for the fight. And so for me, that's why he should be someone who's starting for Middlesbrough against Stoke City, but also in the second half of the season as well, because I think he could have a big role to play. And the fact that he did get a goal against Bristol City, his strike rate so far this season is still really good. Although in comparison to Emmanuel Latilath, it sort of seemed to get a little bit lost. He hasn't really been recognised as a really, I guess, lethal striker for Middlesbrough, but his strike rate is still really good. And so for me, I'd be starting him against Stoke City and giving him another opportunity to show what he can do in terms of his goal-getting ability, but also in terms of the leadership that will show on the pitch as well. So I want to hear from you. The match against Stoke City, it's going to be another interesting one. It's going to be very, very tense. I don't imagine that it's going to be one for the purists. I don't think it's going to be a hugely entertaining game, but it is one that I'm very interested to see how Middlesbrough get on. I think for Michael Carrick, it's going to be another interesting occasion, and one where he'll need to get his team performing better than what they have done in the last few weeks. So I think it's going to be a difficult game, one that on current form I do struggle to see Middlesbrough getting a victory from, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. I want to know what you think from it as well, and whether you think Middlesbrough will get a result as well. So drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think going into this match against Stoke City, and if you have enjoyed this video, please do hit like, comment below, and hit subscribe as well, because there's going to be plenty more videos coming up in the next few days and weeks. Catch you later.